G'day and welcome to ICTWEB411, which is client-side scripts for dynamic web pages. Now, we're going to start this series off with a few sessions of basic HTML, and then we'll move into JavaScript within the HTML code. So, to kick off with, we'll go through an introduction into what is a dynamic web page, the differences between client and server scripting, and then we'll go through some basic HTML review, tags, headings, paragraphs, lists, and links, just to get you started. Now, we'll be doing this fairly quickly, not delving into HTML too deeply, but just giving you enough to make sense of the JavaScript when we add the JavaScript in. So the difference between a static and dynamic web page is a dynamic has the opportunity to change each time you interact with it, whereas a static is always going to be viewed the same way every time you come to it, whereas a dynamic will change. Now, client-side scripting is where it makes those changes based on your actions, and it makes that change within the client's browser. So this content is generated within your web browser on your device. Now that can be, via mouse or keyboard inputs that will trigger, such as JavaScript or Flash events within that web page. Whereas server-side scripting is generally a action that sends information back to the server, an inquiry for information, like if you're on a travel website looking for, your flights or something like that. That's a server-side interaction which goes and prompts the server to do an action, and then it compiles the result and sends that back out to the client browser. Languages that do this is PHP, ASP, JSP, Cold Fusion, Perl. They basically live and run on the server. Now, you can do HTML coding in a straight Notepad. Some people have even said to do it in Word, but doing web pages in Word or a word processor adds a lot of garbage into the actual source code, which is not required. So I recommend using Notepad++. It's a free download, and the benefit with Notepad is it enables you to program for different languages in pure text format. And within that, it can keep track of activities. So in this one I did in PHP for another unit, see how it color codes and links elements top and bottom, and gives you various elements within the section that can keep track of it. So it's very useful, and you just come up into the language tab and select the language that you're going to produce the code for, and it'll keep the appropriate formatting for that language. It's a very useful tool. Now, a basic HTML page is a web page and we'll need a web browser to interpret that HTML language into something that we see on the screen. You can use any of the browsers that are available: Firefox, Google, Safari, Internet Explorer, Opera. Whatever you're using on your machine will be fine. I will be using Chrome, but you can use whatever you wish. Alright, now most modern browsers will have inbuilt tools for development assistance within HTML, and for Chrome it's tools and then developer tools. Safari use the shortcut option plus I. So again, you use whichever you're most comfortable with and support it on the platform you're using. Now, as I said, this is basically a review of HTML, just because my students tend to be a year out from the last unit that they do the HTML in, if they're progressing through the courses. So we do a little bit of a review just to bring everybody up to speed, and if somebody's joined the course without any prior HTML experience, this helps them fill it in. So a good free resource for web development is w3schools.com. They've got a reasonably robust tutorial for a few of the languages out there. So this way you can use it as a tutorial and you don't have to buy a textbook. So tags. HTML is basically tag dependent. So content is displayed and actions taken dependent on which tags the element belongs to. Each pair comes in the format where your brackets, your greater than and less than, and your tag type is in the middle. So the P is paragraph, but the ending tag or closing tag is always got a / before the tag. The tags are not case sensitive, so a lowercase and uppercase are the same thing in HTML. To start a web page, you should define the document type as HTML. This allows you to clearly define to the web browser what language it is using in the document. So this should be at the very start of your code. So open your brackets, exclamation, doc type, then HTML. Next, we'll go through the common tags that you'll find within a standard page. Now, these are the very basic ones, and we'll expand on a few different other feature sets in that. But remember, this is not an HTML course. We're just going to give you a refresher. So, our document type is at the start. Then we open the HTML page, and then we open the header for the page, and the header has information about what we're using in the page, such as character sets. If you're doing a style set, you'd also have that parameters in the header as well. You would then specify your total The title is what's displayed in your tab if you're using a browser. So that's the title of the page. Once you're finished, you close off your tag. That tells it where the start and end of the element that tag applies to exists. Close off your header. Open the body of your page. Put your contents of your web page in. Then close it off. And then close off your HTML document. So they're the core elements that must be, if you like, within a web page. What was that character set? Well, using a standard character set such as Unicode Transformation Format, UTF-8, tells the browsers that you are going to have a standard set of characters to use for ASCII, for example, and the program, the web browser, knows how to handle that code successfully. If you're using character sets that aren't standard, then it's important that you specify them within the header so that it knows how to display those characters correctly. Okay, quick task, because you've had the time to download the Notepad and create your first document. Now, this is a very simple document just to get you started. So I'll, through the brilliance of the internet, can hit the pause and go off and do it. So basically just what we discussed about the elements and the standard tags. So create it, save the file as HTML or HTM. I tend to use HTML. And then what you can do is after you've saved the file, you just go into your Explorer, double click that file, and it'll open it up in your browser. And you can see what the effects are that your code has produced. So I'll let you go off and do that. Feel free. Moving on. Okay, so you've had a bit of a play with HTML page. So let's discuss what we need to do. So we need to set the tags for HTML, which defines the document, and then we need to produce the body of the document. Now, if we just do a great bulk of text, it's pretty hard to read. So we can do things like put paragraph tags in and other things like bolding and headings and all these things. So these all come under the tagging system of. Okay, so just as we've stated before, you put things within tags to affect how that content is displayed within the HTML code. So first one we'll talk about is headings. So headings have 6 default styles, and they will change the height of the heading, the boldness and such. The higher the H number, the smaller the heading. Okay, so have a play. It's quite interesting. Obviously, they're not the correct heights that were on there, because this is PowerPoint, not HTML. So I've just demonstrated the differences using different heights of text. The P that you have been seeing before is for paragraph, and what paragraph does is it adds a single blank line before and after the P element. So this helps space out the text that people are reading on the page, so it makes it a little bit easier to read and blocks it off into different elements of the topic. Next is our list. Now the first one we'll go through is our unordered. So the start tag is UL for unordered list, and then we'll open up each list item with LI and then close them off after each list item is done, and then close off the list. Now, list items are generally displayed with a bullet point, which is normally the small circle in front of them. Ordered lists, same format, but we started with OL for ordered. And again, using the same allies for our individual list items. But this time, when we look at the code in the browser, it should give you a number next to the line item going from 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Now the next one is our links. Our links are used to take us to other pages. Now that page can be external to our website or another page within our site. Now these are quite easy to use. A is the attribute tag, and next to it, within the actual tag, okay, we actually put the address. So here, href for HTML reference, and equals, and then within the quotation brackets, the full address that we want to go to. Close off the quotes, close off the tag. That's the address that the reference is taking us to. The element between the tags is what's displayed in your web browser for this link. So you know how quite often there's a descriptor, like this link will take you to like the home page, or Google, or whatever it happens to be. That's what is displayed as the link. If it's an internal page, same format, but we just specify the actual file that it needs to open. Now, if in your website you have split your files into directories for management, then within your file listing here, you need to specify the folder in front of it. If you just specify the file, it is going to assume that the file is in the same directory as the source file that you're currently on. And again, close it off the tag, and then what the tag is attached to in the browser. Last one here is our mail to. So this is how we add our email addresses to our web pages. Can I stress, don't flood my email address. I really should have put a dummy one in there. Okay, target attribute. This is where we want to open those links. So when we say blank, we're saying open it in a new window or tab. Self opens it in within the same browser window. Parent. Now we're starting to talk about frames. More on frames later on, but think of it as an area within the web browser. So we have some standard frames like a window, looking through a window. You don't normally have a single big pane of glass option. Sometimes you have it quartered, other times you have it sectioned. So basically, when you cut your traditional window pieces of glass into smaller pieces and you put them in thin framing, that's the type of concept we're looking at here. So in a web page, we can create sections of the page that we can control individual actions in just that part of the web page itself, and that's known as frames. So the parent frame, top of the current window, or you can actually specify a particular frame name for that action to link in. So when you want to target a certain frame within your web page to take this action in, so href, do your reference. Now we add target equals and then our frame name where this action is going to take place, and then the normal element that's going to be displayed as your link. Alright, so we've talked about playing with some headers and some paragraphs. So your task at this stage, get yourself set up with a Notepad and a web browser, and just start to familiarize yourself with opening and closing tags and how that affects what's displayed within your web browser. So make changes to your file, save it, and then just hit the refresh button or F5 within your web browser, and it will update your web page to reflect the changes that you just made within your source code for the web page. So that is the first part of our return to basic HTML. There will be a few other sessions on it just before we kick off into doing JavaScript. So this one, just a quick recap, we did what's a dynamic web page. We looked at client and server-side scripting, and then as a start of a refresher, we've looked at tags, headings, paragraphs, lists, and links within HTML. Alright, that concludes our introduction into this unit. So until next time, it's bye for now.